The night I survived the accident, I thought the worst was over, until I learned my wife was pregnant and the child wasn't mine. I couldn't scream, I couldn't walk, I couldn't even clench my fists. The damage to my spine had left me, half a man. But nothing paralyzed me more than those whispered words I wasn't meant to hear. The day she thought I was asleep, Ava told someone over the phone, "He doesn't suspect a thing, and I can't let him find out. Not yet." Her voice trembled, not from guilt, but fear. Not fear of losing me, but fear of being caught. In that moment, I wanted to die all over again. We had only been married for 3 years. She was my beginning, my end, my whole damn reason for waking up. When I opened my eyes in the ICU and saw her blurry face, I reached for her, not realizing. I couldn't move. I remember thinking, at least she's here. But Ava, she wasn't really there. Not in the way I needed her to be. Not in the way she used to be. And now I know why. She didn't hold my hand during the hardest nights. Alexander did. He smiled at me, stood by me, brought me things, helped with therapy visits. My best man, my best friend. The same man who stood at my side when I said I do. And now, behind my back, he was the one giving her what she once promised to only me. I didn't know how long it had been going on. I didn't want to know. But that night, I saw her standing by the window, one hand on her stomach, the other, holding her phone, whispering his name like a secret too sweet to say out loud. Alexander. She turned and saw me watching her. For a second, something flickered in her eyes. But it wasn't fear. It wasn't guilt. It was exhaustion, like she was tired of pretending. I should have cried. I didn't. I just blinked, looked down at my lifeless legs, and whispered to myself, "So this is what betrayal feels like when you can't even walk away from it." My name is Jacob, and I used to think love could survive anything. I thought vows meant forever, that standing at the altar meant we'd stand together through anything life threw at us. I didn't expect fate to test those promises this early, and I certainly didn't expect the person I loved most to fail the test before I could even take it. Ava and I met during our final year of college. She wasn't the loudest in the room, but she didn't have to be. Ava had a presence, a kind of poised silence that pulled people toward her. She had long, dark hair, deep eyes that always seemed to be thinking something you could never quite guess, and a voice that could quiet the worst parts of me. Back then, I was reckless, ambitious, driven, but raw around the edges. Ava was the calm I didn't know I needed. She slowed me down, taught me to breathe, to think, to feel things I had trained myself to ignore. We weren't one of those whirlwind couples. There was no dramatic love at first sight. It was slower, deeper. We had real conversations. We challenged each other. She didn't laugh at all my jokes, only the honest ones. And when she finally said she loved me, it felt earned, like I'd finally won something real in a world full of fake smiles and temporary highs. I proposed 2 years after graduation. I didn't have much, just a tiny apartment, a decent job, and a cheap ring I had paid off in monthly installments. But Ava said yes without hesitation. Her smile that day, it still lives in a part of me untouched by everything that came later. We didn't have a grand wedding, just close friends, a small venue, and a promise between us. My best man was Alexander. We'd known each other since. We were 9. He was the guy I trusted with everything, my secrets, my past, even Ava. He had helped me pick the ring. He was there for every major moment in my life. I didn't know then that he'd be the one to destroy the biggest one. The first 2 years of our marriage were good. Not perfect, but good. We fought sometimes, about money, about time, about when we'd start a family. But we always came back together, always found our way back to us. Ava was my home, and I thought I was hers. But then the accident happened. It was supposed to be a short road trip to scout a photography location. I had just started getting serious about my freelance work, and the spot was perfect. Coastal, remote, quiet. I remember driving with music low, thinking about calling Ava to tell her I'd be late. Then, nothing. A loud crash, the world flipping. The smell of smoke. And pain. So much pain. When I woke up in the hospital, I couldn't move. They told me the damage to my spine was permanent, that I might never walk again. Ava was there, holding my hand. Or maybe it was just resting in mine, I can't remember. Her face was pale, her eyes red. I reached for her, tried to smile through the fear. I asked her if she was okay. She nodded, but she didn't say, "I love you." Not then. Not the next day. Not ever again. The weeks that followed were a blur of doctors, scans, physiotherapy, and silence. Ava was there, but she wasn't there. I told myself it was the trauma, that she was just processing it all in her own way, that she'd come back to me in time. But time passed, and she stayed distant. We didn't laugh anymore. We didn't talk unless we had to. She stopped sleeping beside me and started sleeping in the guest room. Alexander started coming around more often. He'd bring groceries, drive, me to appointments, help with my exercises. He'd sit in the living room and talk to Ava while I listened from the bedroom, pretending not to hear the way her voice changed when she spoke to him. Softer. Lighter. I tried to dismiss it. I told myself I was imagining things. That she was just leaning on a friend during a hard time. After all, she hadn't signed up for this. She didn't marry a man in a wheelchair, but neither did I marry a woman who would fall into someone else's arms the second life got hard. A month after I got home, I found her crying in the kitchen. I wheeled myself over and asked what was wrong. She turned away, wiped her face, and muttered something about stress. I offered to talk, to listen. She shook her head and walked away. That night, I stayed awake long after she went to bed, wondering when exactly I had lost her. Was it the accident? Was it before that? Or was she ever really mine to begin with? It wasn't until I heard her whisper Alexander's name in the hallway late at night that the truth settled into my bones, heavier than the metal screwed into my spine. She wasn't mine anymore. And maybe she never really was. The day I found, out for certain, was a Thursday. Ava had left her phone on the kitchen counter while she went to shower, and I had wheeled myself in to grab a glass of water. I didn't mean to pry, but her phone lit up, and my eyes landed on the name instantly. Alexander. The preview of the message read, "I haven't told him yet. I'm scared. He'll break." My hand froze mid-reach. My chest didn't rise, didn't fall. I didn't touch her phone. I just stared at the message like it had slapped me across the face. That one line tore through every fragile hope I'd been clinging to. For weeks I had tried to believe the coldness between us was temporary, that Ava was grieving what we'd lost together, that she still cared but didn't know how to show it anymore. But now I knew better. She wasn't afraid for me. She was afraid of me knowing. When she came out of the shower in a loose sweatshirt, drying her hair with a towel, I acted like I hadn't seen anything. I asked her what she wanted for dinner. She said she wasn't hungry. Her phone buzzed again on the table. She looked at it, then at me, her expression unreadable. I wondered if she knew I knew, and she wondered if I had the strength left to confront her. I didn't. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of her breathing in the next room. Even now, even with the truth burning inside me, a part of me still loved her, still wished she would crawl into bed beside me and whisper that everything would be okay, that she hadn't really done what I feared she had, that there was still something left between us worth saving. But morning came, and Ava was already gone. No note, no explanation. Later that day, Alexander showed up. He walked in like he owned the place, as he always had. His grin was tight. His eyes avoided mine. He brought groceries, organic spinach, chicken breast, pasta, the kind Ava liked. I didn't speak much. He filled the silence with small talk, pretending not to notice the weight in the air. As he placed things in the fridge, he paused. Ava told me she might stay at her sister's place this weekend. She said she needed space. From me? I asked flatly. He turned, his smile faltering. She's just overwhelmed, Jacob. Are you helping her with that? He blinked. What do you mean? I stared at him for a long second. Nothing. Thanks for the groceries. That was the first time I saw guilt creep into his expression. That evening, Ava came home late. Her hair was messy, lips faintly pink from makeup she'd half wiped off, and the collar of her coat was tugged high. She didn't look at me when she walked past. I heard her sigh when she reached the bottom of the stairs. You didn't eat, I said from the living room. She paused, then muttered. I wasn't hungry. I rolled closer to the archway, keeping my voice low. Ava, is there something you want to tell me? She turned slowly, eyes dark with something I couldn't name. Not sadness, not guilt, almost resentment. Why do you keep doing this? Doing what? Pretending like nothing's changed. I stared at her. Because I was hoping it hadn't. Her voice broke. Jacob, you're not the same. I'm not the same. None of this is the same. So you just gave up? I asked quietly. Her jaw clenched. I didn't give up. I nodded slowly. Then tell me whose child you're carrying. Her body jerked like I had struck her. Her mouth parted, but no words came out. I watched as her hand instinctively drifted to her abdomen. No, I said, the words dry in my throat. I know it's not mine. Her eyes filled with tears, but not the kind I expected. Not the collapsing kind. They were tears of pressure, of things buried for too long, of consequences finally catching up. You don't understand, she whispered. Then explain it to me, I said. Explain how the woman who used to love me now flinches when I breathe and hides her pregnancy like a crime scene. Her lip quivered. She looked away. And for the first time, she said it. It's Alexander. The words didn't hit like a gunshot. They didn't explode. They sank. Quiet and cold, they slipped into my chest and froze everything inside. I didn't plan it, she continued. It just happened. I laughed, bitter and quiet. Funny. So did my accident. She stepped toward me, reaching out, but I rolled back. Don't, I said. Don't you dare touch me. Her arm dropped. The silence between us filled the room like smoke. I couldn't look at her. Not without seeing the version of her I had loved, now gone. You were gone, she whispered. And I was breaking. And he was there. And I was here, I said softly. Paralyzed. Alone. Still trying to be your husband. She covered her face, but I didn't care. I didn't care if she cried now. I had cried alone in the dark for weeks. I had. Wondered what I'd done wrong, blamed myself for not being enough, for being broken. But it wasn't my broken body that lost her. It was her broken loyalty. That night, Ava didn't sleep in the guest room. She didn't sleep in the house at all. And I didn't ask where she went. Jacob didn't sleep. He couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Ava's hand on her stomach, heard her voice echoing the name that used to mean brotherhood, Alexander. The name now tasted like rust and betrayal. The ceiling above him was blank, but it mocked him like a mirror. Every crack, every tiny shadow seemed to twist into a question. When did she stop loving me? Did she ever? Was I just a temporary shelter? Until she found her way back to him, he replayed everything. The nights they spent curled together on the couch. The way she used to steal his shirts in the morning. The nervous way she'd tucked her hair behind her ear when he proposed. Had that all been real, or just a comfort zone until something more convenient came along? No, someone more convenient. His hands trembled. Useless legs beneath a functioning mind, a beating heart, a body she now saw as a burden. He wasn't a husband anymore. He was a wheelchair, a houseplant with feelings. And still, he loved her. That was the cruelest part. Even with all the disgust, even drowning in anger, there was a part of him clinging to her memory, not the Ava who whispered lies, but the one who once waited up for him, wrapped in blankets, smiling. He hated himself for it. Morning came, and the sun spilled in, oblivious. Ava hadn't come home. He didn't check his phone. He didn't want excuses. Explanations weren't going to change the facts. She was carrying Alexander's child, and Jacob was carrying the weight of both their betrayals. He wheeled into the kitchen, made himself toast, and let it go cold on the plate. Every room smelled faintly of her. Every object had a memory stitched into it. The coffee mugs she insisted on organizing by color. The little cactus they'd bought together at a flea market, now wilting by the window. The photo of them in Paris, framed neatly by the hallway, smiles bright, hands intertwined, a lie caught in perfect lighting. Jacob rolled to the photo, stared at it, then picked it up and placed it face down on the table. His hand hovered over it for a long moment before slowly retreating. He couldn't throw it away. Not yet. He hadn't reached that level of numbness. Around noon, Alexander called. He let it ring. Then again. Then a third time. Jacob picked up. "I didn't know she was going to tell you," Alexander said, voice low, cautious. Jacob said nothing. "I'm sorry. I should have stopped it. I swear it wasn't supposed to happen like this." He could hear wind on the other side of the line. Alexander was outside, maybe walking, pacing, pretending to be the victim. "She said you were shutting down. That you wouldn't talk, that you'd already given up." Jacob clenched his jaw. "So that gave you permission?" There was a pause. "No, I don't know, man. I messed up. I know I did. But she came to me, and you didn't stop her." Alexander exhaled sharply. "She was hurting." Jacob's voice was ice. "So was I." There was nothing left to say after that. Jacob hung up. The phone dropped to his lap, silent. The room was too quiet. Even the ticking clock felt like a countdown. That evening, David, Jacob's old college roommate, came by. He was the only one who hadn't vanished since the accident. He brought takeout and forced Jacob to eat something. They didn't talk much, but David was the kind of friend who knew how to fill silence with presence. "She told me," Jacob finally said between bites. David didn't ask who or what. He didn't need to. He just nodded. "I figured." Jacob looked up. "Did you know?" David met his eyes. "I knew something was off, but I didn't want to believe she'd do that to you." Jacob stared at the table. "I keep trying to find a version of this where I did something wrong, where maybe I failed her, where maybe I was already losing her before the accident. But I can't, because I was there. Even after everything, I never left her." David leaned forward. "You didn't fail her. She failed you." It was strange how much weight those words carried, as if hearing someone else say it made it real, made it okay to stop blaming himself. But even that truth didn't soften the ache. Later, that night, Jacob sat in the living room alone. Ava still hadn't returned. He didn't text her, didn't call, didn't want to know where she was, whose bed she might be in, whose name she was whispering. He turned the lights off and sat in the dark. He thought about the baby. Their baby. It would have his eyes, maybe, his hair, his voice. He would raise it like a father. And Jacob would watch from the sidelines, erased like a wrong answer. He didn't cry. He just let the silence swallow him whole. 3 days passed without a word from Ava. No messages, no calls, nothing. Jacob didn't ask. He had already accepted the silence as an answer, but on the fourth night something shifted. It started with a knock, slow, soft, hesitant. Not at the front door, but the back. The one only they ever used. Jacob rolled toward it, unsure what he was expecting. When he opened the door, Ava stood there. She looked exhausted, pale, eyes rimmed with red, hair tied back messily. She wasn't wearing makeup, no coat. Just a sweater that barely covered her. For a second, he thought she was going to fall. I didn't know where else to go, she whispered. He didn't move. What do you want, Ava? She looked down. Can I come in? He stared at her, then moved aside. She walked in, slower than he remembered. There was no arrogance in her posture, no coldness in her voice, just emptiness. Ava sat at the edge of the couch, arms folded tightly over her stomach, as if trying to protect herself from a world she'd helped shatter. I went to the clinic yesterday, she said quietly. Jacob didn't respond. She swallowed. I lost the baby. For a moment, the air stopped. Not just inside the room, but inside him. He blinked. What? Stress, they said. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. My blood pressure dropped. She looked up, eyes glossy. I didn't even notice at first. He didn't know what to say. His hands rested on his knees, frozen. Somewhere inside him, something cracked. But it wasn't relief. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even sympathy. It was conflict. Because, even now, after everything she had done, after the betrayal, the lies, he still hated seeing her broken. I'm not here for pity, Ava said suddenly, her voice sharper. I just thought you should know. Jacob finally looked at her. Really looked. And in her face he saw something unexpected. Not guilt, not even sorrow, but regret. The kind that comes too late. You said you loved him, Jacob said flatly. Did you? Ava didn't answer immediately. I thought I did. Maybe I convinced myself I did. But now, I don't know anymore, he scoffed. Now? I haven't seen him since that night, she added. After I told you, he disappeared. Jacob tilted his head. He left you? Her lips trembled. I don't know where he is. He won't answer my calls. I went to his apartment yesterday. It's empty. Gone. Jacob's heart beat slower, colder. So that was it. Alexander got what he wanted, until it got too heavy. And then, just like that, he vanished. Ava wasn't a home to him. She was just a detour, but this wasn't vindication. It didn't fix anything. The damage had already been done. So now you're here, Jacob said. Because there's nowhere else left to run? Ava said nothing. Her silence was answer enough. He exhaled. Why are you really here, Ava? You want forgiveness? You want to start over? Or are you just scared of being alone? Her face crumpled. I don't know. Then let me help you, he said quietly. Go. Her eyes widened. Jacob, leave. She looked stunned. You're serious? I gave you everything I had, he whispered. Even after the accident, I stayed. I waited. I hoped. But the day you chose him, you ended whatever was left of us. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but Jacob didn't soften. You broke something in me that I don't think will ever heal. And I don't hate you for it. I can't keep bleeding for someone who left me the moment I needed them most. Ava slowly stood, shaking. She looked around the house, the one they built together, like it was someone else's life. Then she turned and walked out without another word. Jacob closed the door behind her. This time he didn't look back. 2 weeks passed. Ava didn't return, not to the house, not to Jacob's messages, though there were only two. One asking if she'd picked up the rest of her things. The other, simpler, I hope you're okay. She never responded. He didn't expect her to. He'd grown, quieter in those 2 weeks, not just outwardly, but inside. Even the grief didn't hurt the same way anymore. It had stopped screaming and started whispering. He spent most of his days at the studio now, working on retouching old client photos, rejecting new bookings without apology. The place smelled like coffee and varnish and quiet sadness. The clients who did come by could sense it too. They didn't stay long. Then one morning, David barged into the studio uninvited. He looked angry, really angry, and not at Jacob. "For once, you've been quiet," he said. "I've been healing." "No, you've been hiding," David snapped, tossing his phone onto the table in front of Jacob. "Take a look." Jacob picked it up, already exhausted. On the screen was a message thread, screenshots shared from someone in their old college group chat. Messages from a user labeled Alex Carter 89. The conversation was between Alexander and one of his acquaintances. It started casual, then, "She's pregnant." "Your girl?" "Nah, my boy's wife. Complicated story." "Wait, what? Bro, what are you doing?" "Just a little fun. I mean, dude's paralyzed. Not like he can keep her happy anyway." Jacob stared at the screen, pulse steady, eyes cold. "I've got more," David said bitterly. He ghosted her on purpose. Ava didn't even know he was the one who posted all that crap until yesterday. Some friend of hers found it and showed her. Jacob scrolled further. Another comment thread. A photo, grainy, poorly cropped but unmistakably Ava, captioned, "Trophy wife. Shame she's already used goods." He didn't blink, didn't clench his fists, didn't shout. He just placed the phone gently down and looked up at David. "Where is she?" David hesitated. "I told her not to come see you. I thought she was coming back just to beg forgiveness." "She's not." "How do you know?" "Because she doesn't have anything left to lie about anymore." David stared at him, something between respect and concern in his eyes. "You're not going to hit him, are you?" "No," Jacob said, voice quiet. "He's already destroyed himself." That night, Ava showed up at the studio. She knocked once and then let herself in, as if unsure she still had the right. Jacob was seated near the window, wheelchair turned toward the amber sky. The late sun cast long shadows on the floor. She stood by the door, wrapped in a dark coat, face pale, almost translucent in the dying light. "I saw the screenshots," she whispered. He didn't move. "I did too. I didn't know. I swear to you. I had no idea. I believe you." Silence. "I was stupid," she said, eyes burning. "I was lonely. I felt abandoned, even though I was the one walking away. I know that sounds twisted, but it's the truth. And Alexander, he didn't just take advantage of you, Jacob. He took advantage of me too." He turned slightly, eyes steady on her now. "He didn't put your hand on his chest. He didn't whisper in your ear. He didn't tell you to lie to me." She nodded slowly, tears dripping without force. "I know." "Then don't excuse it." "I'm not." He looked away again. "Why are you here, Ava?" She stepped forward, her voice trembling. "To return the keys. To say I'm sorry. To say that if I could go back, I'd never let myself be weak. I'd choose you again. Even broken. Even paralyzed. Even bitter." Jacob chuckled under his breath. "You think I'm bitter? Aren't you?" He shook his head. "No, not bitter. Just done." Her shoulders crumpled. "I deserve that." Jacob wheeled closer, stopping a few feet from her. His voice dropped, nearly gentle. "Do you know the worst part?" She looked at him wide-eyed. "It's not that you cheated. Not that it was him. Not even that you lied. It's that you didn't wait. Not even a month. You gave up the second life got hard. You looked at me in that hospital bed and decided, I wasn't enough. I didn't mean to." "You meant it," he said. "And now you're sorry because it's over, not because it happened." Ava sank to the bench by the wall. For the first time since she walked in, she looked small. "You once told me," Jacob continued, "that love means showing up even when it's inconvenient. You said that during our vows. I remember. You didn't show up, Ava. You disappeared." The silence between them thickened. Finally, Ava pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket. "This is the last thing I'll ever ask you to. Read." She stood, placed the paper on the table, and turned to leave. At the door, she paused. "I loved you," she whispered. "Maybe I still do. But I don't expect you to believe that anymore." Then she left. Jacob stared at the paper for a long time. He didn't unfold it right away. He just let it sit there like a ghost, like a goodbye with teeth. When he finally did, her handwriting was shaky, uneven. It wasn't a love letter. It wasn't a plea. It was a confession. She admitted everything. The first moment she felt tempted. The first time she responded to Alexander's texts with something more than politeness. The first night she kissed him and hated herself immediately. After. She wrote about the shame, about how watching Jacob suffer made her feel helpless and afraid, and how Alexander made her feel wanted in ways that distracted her from the guilt. She ended with one line that stuck in his chest. You didn't. Lose me, Jacob. I lost myself, and I'm trying to find her again. Jacob folded the letter. He didn't know if he felt peace or pain. Maybe both. The next morning, he burned the letter. Not out of anger, out of closure. He watched it turn to ash in the backyard fire pit, silent. That night, he dreamed of the day he proposed to Ava, the look in her eyes, the way she trembled when she said yes, and in that dream, he let her go. For real. 3 months passed. The seasons changed, but the memories stayed. Jacob no longer lived in the house he once shared with Ava. He sold it quietly, signed the final, papers without a second glance, and left the keys with a note taped to the counter. You wanted a fresh start. So did I. He bought a smaller apartment near the coast. No stairs, wide doorways, simple peace. There were no photos on the walls, no faint perfume in the air, no shadows of a woman pacing at night, hiding her messages. It was clean, silent. His people who saw Jacob on the street now wouldn't recognize the man who had once begged silently for his wife's attention. The weight in his eyes had been replaced by a quiet force, not anger, not bitterness, just clarity. He'd grown, leaner, stronger, and though his legs still didn't work, his presence did. He no longer needed to be someone's husband. He had become his own foundation again. He restarted his photography business under a new name, stripped it of all the branding Ava had once helped him design. Phoenix Frame. Every client who walked in was greeted by someone who had bled and burned, but was now standing taller than anyone expected. Even if he did it from a chair. And then came the day he got the message. From Isabella, Ava's younger sister. She had never said much during the fallout, but Jacob had noticed how she looked at him, always with a touch of pity and rage she never voiced. She messaged him late one evening. You might want to come to tonight's charity event. Alexander will be there. So will Ava. There's something you'll want to see. Jacob didn't hesitate. He dressed simply. Black suit jacket, pale shirt, clean shave, quiet resolve. The event was packed. Businessmen, influencers, the rich pretending to care about the poor. Cameras flashed, champagne flowed, and laughter echoed off marble pillars. Jacob entered through the side entrance, unnoticed at first. But the moment Ava turned and saw him, the entire energy of the room shifted. She looked different now, thinner, hollow, wearing a beautiful dress that didn't suit her anymore. Her smile faltered the moment their eyes met. Alexander was by her side. He didn't look smug this time. In fact, he looked nervous. Jacob wheeled through the crowd with calm precision, stopping near the stage just as the event's organizer began to speak. There was a long-winded thank you to donors, applause, and then, just as things began to die down, the real show began. A short film, projected onto a massive screen behind the stage. It started with clips from the charity's work, and then it glitched, just for a second. Then another video started playing, phone footage, messages, screenshots, all of it. Alexander's chats, his voice recordings, the disgusting comments he'd made about Ava, about Jacob, about how easy it was to steal something broken. The room froze, gasps, whispers, then outrage. Jacob didn't look at Ava. He didn't have to. Her shaking hand said enough. But Alexander, he panicked, rushed to the stage, tried to speak. The mic wasn't working, intentionally cut. Security approached. The event host demanded answers. Sponsors walked out. Cameras were already rolling. Phones recording. One reporter asked aloud, "Is this the man you endorsed for the board?" It was a public massacre, a final, clean execution, and Jacob had nothing to say. He simply watched as the man who took his life's love was stripped of every illusion of charm, every lie he'd ever constructed. When it ended, Jacob turned his chair and rolled out into the quiet night, the screams of scandal echoing behind him. He hadn't lifted a finger. Isabella had done it for him. He found her waiting by the car. She didn't smile. Just opened the door and whispered, "He deserved worse." Jacob looked at her. "I didn't ask you to do it." "I know," she said, "but I saw everything you went through, and I couldn't keep watching you suffer for the choices they made." He nodded slowly. "Thank you." Isabella shrugged. "Closure's a funny thing. It doesn't fix the past, but it lets you walk away from it." Jacob looked down at his legs, then back at her. "Roll away works too." She laughed. Genuine. It was the first time in a long time someone had made him laugh without apology. 2 weeks later, Alexander was dropped from every board seat. Sponsors backed out. He was hit with a harassment suit from a former intern, emboldened by the leaked recordings. His public image collapsed. His clients fled. His name became poison overnight. Ava moved out of the city. Quietly. She sent no message this time, but Jacob heard she was working in a small firm now, alone, out of the spotlight. He didn't wish her pain. He didn't wish her joy either. He just let her go. Truly. That summer, Jacob published a photography book. It was called Ruins and Light. Each image was paired with a short line. One page had a photo of a cracked window, sunlight breaking through dust. The caption read, "The worst thing she ever did wasn't leaving. It was making me believe I had to stay." The final page was a mirror, and under it, "If you're holding this book, you survived something too. Remember that." It sold out. Twice. Jacob was invited to speak on podcasts, at universities, and eventually to photograph for a global travel campaign focused on resilience and human strength. He accepted. He packed lightly. Closed the studio for 6 months. Left the past folded neatly in the drawer, right beside the ashes of the letter Ava had once left him, and one day, while standing atop a hill in Italy, camera in hand, he looked out, over the countryside, feeling nothing pulling him backward. Not her, not him, not even regret, just wind and peace.